everyone, and welcome back to the Travel Coach Network podcast. It is I, Sahar Rose DeVore, the founder of the Travel Coach Network and the creator and instructor of the Travel Coach Certification Program. Today, I have a very lovely guest. I have Dawn Pick Benson. Dawn is a writer and self-discovery travel coach who helps women experience personal and spiritual awakening through solo travel. She specializes in working with women who are 40 plus and feel stuck or at a crossroads in their life, faith, career, or relationship. Through her small group coaching program called Brave Journey, Dawn helps women rediscover themselves, plan their dream trip, and have a squad of like-minded women cheering them on in the process. Dawn is also the founder and owner of GlobeStory Travel and has lived in or traveled to nearly 50 countries. She's a global ambassador of the Travel Coach Network, a graduate of the Travel Coach Certification Program, a certified cultural intelligence facilitator, and has appeared in publications such as the Washington Post, TripAdvisor, the New York Times, and Women's World magazine. She's currently writing a travel memoir about her own awakening while traveling solo in Kosovo and the Balkans. Dawn, thank you so much for joining us today. I can't wait to chat with you.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm excited to be here as well.
Wonderful. Before we dive into your travel coaching business and everything, tell us, where does your love of travel stem from?
That's a great question. I think that it really stemmed from my curiosity about people. I've always been curious about people and places and what their lives are like. I grew up in a rural community on a farm. And so I actually didn't even see the ocean until I was in college. So I didn't grow up traveling, but I was always just super curious about the world. And I had this memory as a child. I used to have this globe and I would spin the globe and just point to something to country on the globe. And then I would go get the Encyclopedia Britannica in our hallway and I'd look up the country and I'd learn as much as I could about the country. And then I remember just sitting there and wondering, like, I wonder what it is like to live there and what do the kids do? What would it be like to be part of a family? What do they eat? So I was always just super curious. And so once I grew up and after I was 18 and no one could tell me I couldn't travel, I basically picked the furthest country possible that I could think of at the time to go to. And my very first international travel experience was to India. And then that trip just kind of solidified my travel bug. I went and just absolutely loved the experience. I'm actually still in contact with a couple of the people I met back then, which is now like 30. It's weird to say that. 30 years ago, I went on a trip, and we still on Facebook, happy birthday to each other, etc. So it's kind of funny how the world just opened up to me after that experience, and then I just kept traveling.
Yeah. Would you say that is the trip or one of the trips that transformed you or made the biggest impact on you? Or is there another trip you can think of?
Yeah, I mean, that definitely is one of them, but I would say there's a couple of places. I mean, every place kind of transforms you in a different way, but there's two that stand out to me the most. Is I studied abroad in Egypt, and that in my early years was transformative because I had grown up in a small kind of conservative world, and I studied the Arab-Israeli conflict while I was there and learned a ton about a culture. And it was really my first time of being around people of other faiths, which really kind of integrates into my story now. But it was my first kind of awakening of the fact of, wow, there's all these people and all these beliefs and all these ways of doing things. And then more recently, and probably the country that has impacted my life for the long term the most is Kosovo, which is what I'm writing the memoir about. But it has been a place for me that I have been going back and forth. Sometimes you visit a country and it just kind of it's a place that draws you in. And I historically usually have always wanted to go to a new country every time, right? But when I visited Kosovo, something just drew me back. And so I've been going back and forth there for about 20 years now. And I have really good friends who are like family. And it's been an amazing, I always say travel is a beautiful healer and a teacher. And, about 6, 7 years back, I was in the middle of a crossroads myself, figuring out, I was married and trying to figure out, am I going to stay in that? What am I going to do next? I was having career questions as well. And it was a place that I went, and which is, I think, is what travel does for us, right? Like we go away, and it just gave me this renewed perspective and a safe place for me to just look at, what do I really want out of life? What do I need? What is my soul calling for? And with my career too, am I actually doing the things that I love? Do I need to take stock? So that is a place that has really formed the last decade of my life, I would say, because it allowed me this space to just question and to ask. After my divorce a few years back, I returned to Kosovo, and then it became this beautiful place of healing for me. It just felt like it was this familiar hug of a place that I came back to, and I, spent some time there and was able to really experience a lot of healing and personal transformation.
For people who have not been to Kosovo, what do you think it is from that very first trip that really you gravitated towards and that kept pulling you back? Can you give a few examples?
Yeah, I think first of all, the hospitality. It is, and I've traveled a lot over the years, and there's lots of places that have lovely hospitality, but there was something unique about Kosovo in the way that that you're just embraced. You could walk into a store, and the shopkeeper invites you to have coffee with his family, or to have dinner with his family. And so I don't know, it's interesting. I often think that countries kind of resonate with your spirit and with your energy. And there's this unique energy there. It's kind of like an East meets West. So I already knew I kind of have a love and an interest in Arabic culture, and Kosovo was under the Ottoman Empire for several, I don't even know, for hundreds of years. So that has influenced it, but it's also in Europe. So it's kind of this East meets West, a little bit unusual place where things don't always go the way, like you can't really plan very well, and people just really embrace you, but it's also got this European flair, this cafe culture. So there's a lot of reasons I probably love it, but the biggest thing is just the way that people and have embraced me. And as a woman too, it's really a safe, like, I know people probably don't think of it this way, but I never feel unsafe, and I travel there solo a lot, and it feels like a very safe place to travel. People are very protective of you. When you ask questions, they will go out of their way to help, you know, help make sure that you get where you need to go. So it's just, there's a lot of nuances in the culture there, but it's an amazing, I always think it's maybe not a place that women solo travelers think of. But it is one of the places that I feel that has felt quite safe to me. So
Yeah. Well, I can hear, well, that's people and the way that a place makes you feel and that feeling that you're looking for are a lot of the reasons why we travel in the first place. Like where you travel to experience different cultures, to learn something new, to meet, new people, to hear new stories. People in place are the foundation of the travel industry. And when I ask people all the time who are joined in the Travel Coach Network community, why did they travel on a deeper, more personal level? Some of the most popular answers are always to meet new people or to learn about or experience other cultures. And it sounds like Kosovo is a good combination of all of that too, especially being in the Balkans, which is such a beautiful region of Europe as well.
yeah, I'm glad you said that. It's absolutely beautiful there. And something I didn't say that I probably should have said is it's not, the tourist world in general has not discovered Kosovo and the beauty of it. And that is also what makes it fun for me to travel, because it doesn't feel super touristy. It's very easy to have just very authentic experiences, because people are not, they're not as used to the tourists as you would get in other parts of Europe. So
Yeah. So you shared a little bit of your background and those crossroads that you were at in your own life. Did that inspire you to become a self-discovery travel coach, or what was the catalyst for that venture of yours?
yeah, it actually did. So I was in on the trip to Kosovo where I went and was just kind of trying to figure out what do I want to do with my life. So I was asking a lot of questions. I've been a writer for years, for like, I don't know, 20 plus years. That has always been my career, and I enjoy it and I love it. But I was coming to a point where I thought, I've been doing this for a long time, and I know that travel has always been my passion, but I never could quite figure out how to make that my job. So it was always like, and I know I've heard you talk about this before, how you loved travel, but you didn't want to, you didn't want to be able to do bookings and do blogging. And I didn't want to be involved in the typical ways of travel either. So really, I just took a path of, I was a writer, worked at a magazine, and then worked in higher ed for a long time. And so I would just volunteer. Like when I was in higher ed, I would volunteer to take students on study abroad trips. And so that's kind of how I first started getting experience of leading trips and finding out all the nuances. That's where I learned and got trained in cultural intelligence and all those things. And so I had been doing all those things for a long time and figuring out how to fit travel in. But then I came to a point of like, if I really love this, how can I make that more a part of my work? And I also started to notice that I really liked mentoring and I really liked coaching, and people would ask me to do that. And I would do it just for fun because I thought, well, this is just fun to help women figure out. And often the women who are coming to me were like I look back at it now, and they were at a crossroads. They were often trying to make a decision about a career or something like that. And so I was already just doing these things for fun, and noticing that, and I went over to Kosovo thinking about potentially starting a business there. And then I came back and was still really, I think when I went over there, I thought I was going to have this amazing epiphany, and I got a little frustrated, and it doesn't always happen when you travel. Right? I learned a lot, but I didn't quite get solidified on exactly what to do next. And so when I came home, I remember I have this morning routine where I have coffee and I do like a centering prayer or meditation. And I was doing that, and this phrase came to my mind, and I don't even really remember what the phrase was, but it had to have been something about helping women travel or something. And so I grabbed my phone and I plug it in, and out comes this list of travel coach, travel coach, travel coach. And I thought, holy crap, that's a job. And so this was pre-COVID. So and travel coaching was really new, and there wasn't a lot out there. But I think the next few days I spent just scouring the internet, looking at what are people doing. And it was just this interesting thing in which I all of a sudden saw how my life experiences, the crossroads I'd been at, all my travel experience and my plan, all of that almost seemed to align perfectly with this job. And so then I started looking into the the Travel Coach Network certification program. And also looking at my own, I kind of reverse engineered to create my Brave Journey group program, looking at, okay, I went on my own journey of transformation. What did I do that worked really well? And then I just kind of reverse engineered it to create that group program. And that's really kind of where it started, was me just having that epiphany of, oh my gosh, it almost feels like in a strange way, my life, all of these things that I have done in my life that didn't always quite make sense to me, kind of now aligned to being this job that's perfectly suited for me. And so that's kind of where it came from.
I've heard that from many people who have joined the travel coach certification program, or the messages or the emails that I receive of them saying, I didn't know that this was out here. When I found it, I just realized like, this is exactly what I've been looking for. This is the career that I've been kind of thinking of. I just didn't know there was a term for it. So it's just an exciting industry to be in, and it's grown so much. You mentioned your Brave Journey small group coaching program. Can you share more about that, what you do in that, and why did you decide to do group coaching versus individual coaching?
Yeah. Um, a lot of it is when I look back at my own transformation, there's a couple of things. So first of all, when I started to think about doing the coaching, I interviewed a whole bunch of women. I just decided I'm going to interview women who are in the middle of a crossroads. And I hadn't really even landed on travel coaching yet. I just knew I think I want to do some kind of coaching. And almost every one of those women said, I am missing community in my life, like a deep a community, a place in which I feel supported. And so I noticed that. And then I also was thinking about my own experience and how important community was during that process. Like for example, when I went on one of my journeys to Kosovo, I had a weekly check-in every Thursday with a really good friend of mine. We checked in, and this was right after my divorce, and we checked in, and she wanted to know how I was doing, and it was my touch point. It's something that I needed as I was going through that grief process. And so I knew, and then I had a few other women who were checking in on me, and I knew by my own experience how important that is. And then I started researching a little bit more about it too, and just understanding that transformation really does happen in community. And so then I thought, what if I create, I know I can do one-on-one group coaching, and that's something I'm able to do. But what I think that there's this power in creating a community. And so what I do from the outset, I focus on a small group coaching program, because I also joined a few different group coaching programs to see what it was like. And what I think was difficult is when you're in a group coaching program and you're one of a sea of people on Zoom, right? And so I knew I didn't want that. And I knew the programs that were most transformative to me were the smaller ones, where you get to know each other and everyone knows each other's names and their story, and they can support one another. They become friends sometimes outside of the group. And so I knew that I wanted to focus on that. And so um, the program in a nutshell is focused on never have more than 5, 6, 7 women, so that we all can know each other's stories, get to know each other well. And I really set the stage at the beginning of that group program, because I also think it's important to understand that the confidentiality. And so I call it a safe container, like when we discuss it right off the bat, we're creating this container in which it's really designed for women to come together and to be generous with one another, to create this sacred space in which they're able to say, the brilliance I see in you is this, the opportunities I see for you is this. It's this magical way in which they come together and support one another. So setting that stage early. And then the program is a 6-month program. So it's not super short, because I have always, where what I really focus on and is important to me is transformation. And I don't think that comes quickly. And so it's a 6-month program, and it goes in 3 phases. So the first phase is all about setting your vision. So, you gather the women together in our group, and we dig deep into who are they. I have them do a strengths finder assessment, so they really understand who they are and what their strengths are. I can coach them in that way. And also I really think those strengths, when you're stressed, you can pull out and use your strengths. And so when they're on their trip, we talk about that as well, like understanding your strengths. And then I see them as almost like tools in your backpack. When you know what your strengths are, you can pull them out when you're stressed. Like, for example, there's a woman in my program named Jackie, who, a couple of her strengths are, strategic, and she's a relator. And so, invariably, and this is what I tell her, she's about to go to Greece. And so what I tell her often is, remember, when things always go awry. Your boat, like she's going to be in Greece, maybe your boat does something happens with that, or you miss a flight or whatever. But remember, you're strategic. You can think ahead about these things, and you can figure it out, so that they understand they are also coming with their own special superpowers. And then as they learn each other's strengths, they remind, like, it's interesting how they remind each other, like, remember, you have this strength. And so we really kind of delve in to that and them understanding who they are, and then looking at what their vision is for their trip. So I know you said that a little bit earlier about understanding what you want to feel on a trip. And so I have them do this exercise that is going to be one of the in the show notes that people can go to afterwards. It's the free PDF that I'm offering. Will kind of walk you through this process. But I have them imagine the most extraordinary trip they could ever go on. Close your eyes, imagine it in all the five senses, and then write that down. And then once you do that and you write that down, and like, for example, one of the women in my group, her story was, I open, the window in the morning of my boutique hotel, and there's this cobblestone street outside, and then I get up, I get dressed, and I'm having espresso on the water, and no one needs anything from me, and I am spending the morning drinking espresso and reading a book. That is her ideal vision of a trip, and not everyone's would look like that, but that's hers. And so when you do that, then I have her look at what are some of the feelings that you are evoking while you're reading that, or you're thinking about that trip, or what words do you use writing about it. And we circle those, and you kind of narrow it down to 2 to 4 of them, and then those become kind of this catalyst of, now you have an idea of not only where might I go on my trip, but what do I need to feel? Because, for Robin, who wants to go to the south of France and drink espresso, that is in, her words were peace, and I want to feel confident. That's a very different trip than another woman in my group who wants to feel vibrant and alive. And her idea is like, dancing, in the street with people she doesn't, that she has just met. And her words are, so as you can imagine, her trip would be very different. So getting back to your question about the group program, that's the first phase. And that's really an important phase where I find that they really kind of dig deep and understand what they're wanting. Because I think the way in which you're going to have a transformative trip is by knowing these things at the outset, because anyone can plan a trip for you, or you could say, I just want to go to Paris, and someone could put together an itinerary for you, and it doesn't mean that it evokes what you're really looking for. And as you can see, like, women might want and need really different things. So once they unearth that and know what they're looking for, then we go into the planning phase, which is really all about them figuring out the nuts and bolts of the trip. And, as a travel coach, I don't do all of that for them, but I am their resource. So I help them figure out, when they have questions about flights, or how do I do this? Or how do I renew my passport? I don't know. There's lots of details that are involved depending on the person and their questions. And so we have that phase in which everyone's kind of figuring out their trip and what they should do. And that's the more practical phase, I suppose. And then the third is them, I just call it takeoff and landing. So it's them going on their trip and giving, I send them, we always do a send off with the women when they go on their trip. And then they get a journal, and they get journal prompts from me. And then I always check in with them once, or, depending on how long their trip is, there are some certain number of check-ins with me to help them troubleshoot if they need to, or sometimes they just need, some moral support. And so that's part of the program as well. And then I think that the return is so important. And I experienced that myself again, just coming back. I just got back from Kosovo in January, and coming back can be so hard. And we don't always realize that, or it's not talked about as much. And so they have some support in terms of coming back, and we talk about the reverse cultural shock and what you may or may not experience, and them doing this all. The magic that I have found is them really doing it as part of a group process. Like, they all know each other now, and when they learn resources of how I might, hey, I saw this really cool thing happening in Greece, or there's this artist group that you might want to look into. So now they're all helping each other. And even when I was away during this last cohort, I was overseas a lot of the time leading it. And there was one week in which I was traveling and I couldn't meet. And so they just decided, we're just going to meet without you. Can we meet without you? I was like, but it was so cool to see that even when I wasn't there, they still wanted to get together. And the transformation that I have seen in them is astounding. Like I began the program hoping that it would work and thinking that it might work. But the feedback that I have gotten, and that, this last group that has gone through the process with me basically has said, hey, we want to keep meeting. How do we keep meeting? And so now I'm in the process of figuring out what that looks like. What does it look like for, an alumni version of this, or extending what we're learning now? And you may or may not be going on a trip. Maybe you have a different goal. And so I'm in the process of figuring that out now too. That was a very long answer to your
Yeah.
question.
No, I love that. I love that you focus on the community. And I hear within that what you were sharing is that you're helping these people set intentions for their trips, which is exactly what travel coaching is all about. Like you mentioned, anyone can help, not anyone, but anyone passionate about travel can help someone plan and book a trip. And figure out the logistics of a trip. There's so many resources online now, and on Pinterest and on Google, and all these guides and everything on, best things to do in a city, or, where to stay when you go somewhere. But those logistics of the trip are one thing. The understanding why someone wants to go somewhere, or why they want to go on a trip in general, and how can this trip actually impact who they are, change their life, or help them reach a specific goal or desire that they have for themselves. And I hear all of that in your group coaching program. So thank you so much for sharing that. Yes, those resources that you mentioned will be in the show notes as well. But as we come towards the end of our episode here, and also, I just love being able to have people like you, Dawn, who've been in through our program, share what you do in your business, because every travel coach is so different. All of you focus on a different audience. All of you help people in a different ways. All of you have different types of revenue streams, which is what I preach all the time, which is that you don't have to have a cookie cutter business like the travel industry or any business has told you for so long. Travel coaching is really authentic to who you are and how you want to help people, and who is it that you want to help, and what kind of business structure do you want to have. Your lifestyle, your daily life, all of that is tied into there as well. So I love that you gave that example of what you do, because I know so many coaches are always curious. And I know we're going to have you as a guest travel coach in the certification program too, to share more about what you do. But talking about the certification program, can you, was there a big takeaway, or what was one of your best takeaways because you've been through in the Travel Coach Network for a couple of years now, and a graduate of our Travel Coach certification program, but is there something in mind that the program really helped you with, or really made an impact on you?
Yeah, I think there's probably a lot. One of them is just, you do a really good job of showcasing the fact that we can use our life experiences and to get us thinking about that. And that was a huge takeaway for me too, because a lot of my travel experience, and a lot of what has happened in the last decade, is sort of me even just doing the spiritual deconstruction and then reconstruction, and me kind of having a light bulb moment in hearing you talk at different times, and listening to some of the different podcasts of understanding too that piece of my story is relevant, and that there are a lot of women out there like me who were asking questions about faith as well. And I know I didn't talk about that as much earlier on, but it is definitely one of those crossroads times. And me just kind of having that aha moment of, oh my gosh, this is actually a real, travel has been a really great way for me to not only kind of deconstruct how I believe, but also to reconstruct something that is really beautiful. And I don't know that I would have probably thought about that had we not been exposed. There's so many different people in the Travel Coach Network who are doing so many different things. And so just even listening to what other people are learning and how they're using their own special skills and knowledge to speak to people has been super helpful to me. So it's really like the community, just the community of the knowledge base of hearing other people, and for us to be able to look at something that I might not have thought, oh my God, like and initially that's an interesting niche, or that's and something interesting to talk about. But then me thinking about it and realizing there's a lot of people like me who are experience something difficult in their life, and it kind of unravels a lot of things, and now you have to figure it out again. And so that's, has been, I guess that's on top of my mind, because it's been a more recent development and kind of aha moment in the last 6 months, maybe even.
Yeah, I love that because the Travel Coach Network is full of so many incredible human beings. You guys are all on similar paths, yet such different paths, and all of you can learn from one another and do learn from one another. I learn from all of you, and that continues to grow as the Travel Coach Network continues to grow. Travel means something differently to everyone, and we all experience, different lives. And so bringing all of these different ideas and perspectives and approaches to one community, we can really enrich and build a more robust business that all of us are, that's the purpose why we are here. So Dawn, thank you so much for that. I really do appreciate it. I love having you in the program and seeing you on our calls. You're such a ray of light. My favorite question that I always ask is there a fun fact about yourself that you can share? It doesn't have to be travel or business related.
Yes, I was thinking about this earlier. I don't know how familiar everyone is with the Enneagram, but I'm an Enneagram 9, which means I have a really hard time choosing one thing, which you probably have seen in some of my answers. So I'm going to give you two quick ones. One is that one of my first jobs was detasseling corn. And so people who don't live in pretty much Indiana or the Midwest have no idea what that is. Literally is pulling tassels out of the tops of corn. And I did that for hours on end as a teenager, and it did teach me a lot about work ethic. Also taught me that I didn't want to be a farmer. And the other just kind of fun fact that I thought of today as I was walking is that I climbed Mount Sinai one time in the middle of the night in a lightning storm, which is not the smartest thing in the world. I don't advise it, but I was young and was with a group, and we were climbed up in the middle of the night, spent the night on the top, and it was freezing up there, which we also didn't anticipate because it was so hot during the day, and again, weren't thinking, but spent the night, climbed up in the middle of the night during all that rainstorm, spent the night up there. And then I woke up, and we slept on this really hard surface. So, like half of my body was asleep when I woke up. But as we woke up, I woke up super early because I was uncomfortable, and I heard this beautiful music, and I thought, what is happening? And it was, the sun was just rising. So I went over to see, and there were at least a dozen nuns who I think were from Korea, singing hymns at sunrise. So it's one of my favorite travel stories, one of my favorite moments, but also kind of just a unique fact that I spent the night on top of Mount Sinai and got to watch the sunrise and hear nuns sing hymns during it.
That's what travel's all about. It's those spontaneous adventures and moments that you get that aren't planned. That's not in a cold, hard itinerary that we follow. That's, we meet people as we go. I mean, I can think of so many examples of while you're sharing that story, of times that I just met people and we made a impromptu decision to go somewhere, to follow the pack and do something that isn't maybe not always the wisest. You might have caught pneumonia sleeping up there, but having that experience, you're painted that picture so well of waking up with the sunrise and the group of nuns singing. What a beautiful experience. And and there's so much to learn from all of that. It really does transform who we are. But Dawn, share with our audience as we end here, where can they find you? Where can they follow you and learn more about you and your group coaching programs?
Yeah. Most of my information is under my name. So my website is my name, dawnpickbenson.com, my full name. And I won't it'll be in show notes, so I want to spell it all out for you. But on Instagram, also under dawnpickbenson.com, I do have a Facebook group that is called Brave Journey, and it Brave Journey Self-Discovery Solo Travel for Women. It's kind of a long name, but it is just kind of a fun group for women 40 plus who just share their travel stories and their photos and stuff like that. So you can find me there as well.
Wonderful. Dawn, thank you so much for joining us today on the Travel Coach Network podcast. It was such a delight talking with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much too. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Everyone, be sure to follow us on Instagram at the Travel Coach Network. Learn more at thetravelcoachnetwork.com. Come give us a hello. We look forward to having you in our Facebook group, the TCN Global Community. You can find the link for that and your free beginner's guide to travel coaching in the show notes. That's where you will also find all of the links that Dawn has mentioned to connect with her, and of any of our guests are always in those show notes as well. And if you know anyone who may be interested in travel coaching, please be sure to send them our way to our podcast. We truly appreciate it. And until next time, my fellow wanderers, bye for now.